Hi. So, like I mentioned in my last video, I have a cheap Chinese welder. This one. Now honestly, for what I paid for it, it's not that bad. I paid around 400 or 450 euros for it 10 years ago and it still works. I can still weld with it, I can still cut with it. But when you're used to more expensive machines like I am, there are some features you can miss. Most notably, the slope up and slope down function. The only feature this one has is a post gas flow. And that's this knob right here. Now this protects the weld after you're finished with it. But if you don't have a slope down function, you're still going to have a pipe in the end of the weld if you don't do that weird spasmy thing I showed you in the last video. This. Now, like I mentioned in my last video, I do have a more expensive welder. This one. Now, this machine, in contrast to my cheap Chinese welder, would cost between 2,500 and 3,000 euros new. I got it used for around 1,000 euros. Unfortunately, it's broken. I had it into the dealership and they're telling me it's going to cost me around 1,100 euros to fix. Now, honestly, if I had the money and I had more use for the machine, I'd spend that money on it, because this is a great machine. It would last me a lifetime if I fixed it. But right now, I don't have that kind of money. However, I do still miss the functions of this welding machine. Both the slope up, the slope down, both the pre-flow and post-flow gas, and this is also a pulse DC TIG. Now to kind of fix this problem, I actually went and bought another machine. This one! It's quite a bit heavier than the other ones. Now this is a really old machine. The two other ones are inverter machines, so a modern type of power source basically that's really lightweight and really easy to use. This is an older type of transformer machine. Now the nice thing about this was that since it's kind of old, it was really cheap. Now these older machines are kind of bulletproof. I haven't used this exact model, but I've used bigger ones of the same brand and other similar machines for several years up in Norway, and they just work. They never break down. So the guy I bought this from had only used it as a stick welder. Now I'm interested in the TIG functions, of course, but I was fairly certain that it would work right off the bat. And it did. I've tested it, it works. Now this welding machine is of the model TIG 180 by the company Norweld. The company Norweld were based in Stavanger in Norway. Now you might recognize the name TIG 180, but maybe not the company name. And the reason for that is because the company Norweld was bought by Lincoln Electric in the early 80s. Lincoln Electric actually continued manufacturing the TIG 180 model for several years, at least 10 years after they bought Norweld, but under the Lincoln Electric brand. So you might see these machines bright red with Lincoln Electric logo on the side instead. It's the exactly same machine, just newer. Now, it does have a few issues. Most notably, it didn't come with a hose for TIG welding. Now luckily enough, because I never throw anything away, I just happen to have one laying around. With the right plug even. So when I got that plugged in, I tested it, it works. But let me show you a few of the issues. So this machine hasn't been used as a TIG welder for at least 4 or 5 years. The same length of time the previous owner had it. So this is their solution for power lead. Now one of the problems is that it has the small OKC connections and his stinger had the large one. The same as my, where is it? There. The same as my TIG handle. So not too much of a problem. I have an adapter, but I need to fix it up. The power connection for the TIG handle, as well as the shielding gas, is kind of messed up. I need to fix that. And also the slope down function. Now the slope down function works. Unfortunately it's stuck at max at 5 seconds. I can't turn it down. Now generally I don't mind working with 5 second slope down, but I still want to be able to set it if I need to. Now one of the great benefits of this machine, and why I'm kind of happy that I found it, is that this is actually pulse DC TIG. The same as my red one, only very much older, around 30 years older. Based on this small note I found inside it, it's probably used in the offshore industry at some point, because Norgas is a Norwegian oil company, or was a Norwegian oil company. So let me give you a short rundown of the controls. Now first of all, here we have the process control. Here we have stick, 2T operation, 4T operation. Now in 2T, you need to hold the button on the handle down while you weld. On 4T, you can push it down, let it go to light up the arc, and then push it down and let it go once again to turn it off. Over here, we'll switch between local and remote mode, and if you're in remote mode, you need either a remote handle or foot pedal connected here. Now for the process controls up here, we have the main welding current. This is a 180 amp machine. Here we have the background current when you're welding pulsed DC TIG. Here we have the on pulse time between 0.2 and 3 seconds. Here we have the off pulse time. Now during this off pulse time, it is actually this percentage of the max current we're using when we weld. So if we have this one at 1.3, for 1.3 seconds we'll have, let's say, 33% of the main current. And here we have the downslope that we can set between 0 and 5 seconds. But like I said, right now it's stuck at 5 seconds. Now I suspect it's only the potentiometer that's gone bad, or one of the cables. So what I'm planning to do right now is to pull it apart, clean it out real good, and see if we can fix these problems. Now, there might be more problems inside. I really don't know. The only thing we'll find out is if we open it up. So let's go. Yeah, so I think I found one of the problems straight off the bat. Here we have the post-gas flow potentiometer, and if you take a look here at the back, these two pins here are bridged with some wire and solder, which means that these two pins will always be at the same potential, so probably either plus 10 volt or 0. I would have to take some measurements to actually be sure. But the idea here is that we create a voltage divider between these two ports and the center pin. And the center pin here is connected to the wiper, which you can see there. So depending on where this wiper is, at the carbon track or wire wound track maybe? No, I think it's actually a carbon track on this one. It will vary the voltage on the center pin, and that variation in the analog voltage is what sets the time difference between, well, 0 and 5 seconds. But if these two connectors are bridged, we're always at either 0 volts or, well, plus 10 or plus 5 volts. So my suspicion is that the potentiometer broke down or stopped working, and instead of switching it out, they bridged those two wires so you always had the maximum post gas. That should be an easy fix. The only thing I have to do is either remove the solder bridge and fix the potentiometer, or replace the potentiometer. And I have a box of them somewhere. So let's continue looking and see what we find. This hose, I think I will need to replace as well. It looks really old.
and kind of dry it up. That will be a bit of a hassle to access, but I should be able to do it. And luckily enough, these two negative connectors are attached to some type of either mica or plastic, which I should be able to replace with a piece of like plexiglass. I think should work just fine. And I will also repair, I don't know if you can see it, but there are two copper pads that are supposed to connect this top connector to the TIG connector. I think you might be able to see it right there, right at the edge. I will need to replace that one as well.
So let's get to work. Yeah, so even though this plastic hose is at least 30 years old, it actually seems to be in fairly good condition. But like I said, it's 30 if not 40 years old, so I'm gonna replace it anyway. So now, to remove the front panel, I need to remove this bolt here, which attaches to the positive lead on the front. And of course I forgot the screws from the bottom. Did I mention that this machine is 3-phase, by the way? And here we have the old rubber hose. And like I said, for being 30, at least 30, maybe 40 years old, it's really not too bad. But still. Here we have that, the copper plate I was talking about, that's broken off. So I have no idea really what's going on here. I mean, this one's all bent out of shape as well. So I'm gonna have to split at least these two front ones. I think that maybe this one is the original, but I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take everything apart anyway to replace this piece of sheet right here. So I guess I'll find out. So here we have the, let's see, here we have the back side from one of the potentiometers. Two of them have lost their back side, so I know that at least one of them, and I think it's the, yeah, it's the one for the background current, it has to be, is 100 kilo ohms. I wonder if the back side for the post gas flow is in there as well. I mean, it's seriously a bit like archaeology, looking through old machines, and I think
I think... Yeah. I think there are actually nuts down here to attach an external cooler for a water-cooled handle. That's kind of neat. Maybe I'll do something with that. We'll see. And if you're wondering why I'm not blowing this out with the shop air, well, I don't have a compressor. So there's why. We have an indexing pin right here. It's like a 1/8 of an inch thread. I need to get some proper soft jaws for this vise one day. And here we have, I think anyway, the original gas connector with some type of adapter. Focus. You know, I noticed two things here. Yeah. First of all, this connector right here is actually matched to these screws. I don't know if you can see that, but it says Dinsei, and there it says Dinsei as well. It's really hard to make out on the video, but anyway. So the screws are actually matched to the connector. And I noticed another thing, which is kind of a bit more weird. Now this plate here that held the actual connectors, yeah, it actually seems to be made by an old road sign. Like literally a road sign. I don't know if it will show on the video, but right here you can see it's actually reflex material. Yeah. So I don't know who or what rebuilt this welder, but someone apparently had access to old road signs. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. Anyway, with that in mind, I think a piece of plexiglass should work just fine. I'm kind of certain about it. So here I have the new hose I'm planning to use. It's a glass fiber reinforced plastic hose. It should work fine. These type of clamps right here should also hold up at least as good, if not better, than these old ones. However, these clamps seem to be one size too large. This hose right here is one size bigger. I think it should work.
here's the piece of plexiglass I'm planning to use. Here I have the copper plate I'm planning to use to remake this part. Now I think it's... yeah, it's slightly thinner. This one right here is 1 millimeter, and the one I have is 0.5, so I'll double it up, or maybe triple it up, just to make sure.